Have you ever stopped to think about how your actions might be affecting your relationships as you age? It's a question that many of us, especially as we move into our 70s and beyond, might not consider often enough. Yet it's crucial as we grow older. Some habits, though well-intentioned, can unintentionally push people away instead of drawing them closer. Maybe you've noticed a growing distance between yourself and your children, grandchildren, or even friends. Perhaps you've wondered why you feel misunderstood, or why those closest to you seem hesitant to spend as much time together as they once did. Could it be that certain behaviors, developed over time, are creating barriers instead of bridges? This is exactly what we'll be exploring today. Imagine Martha, a 72-year-old retired nurse from Portland. She's loved by her family, yet she often feels lonely and unsure why the vibrant, close-knit relationships she once had seem to be slipping away. Martha's story might sound familiar to you or remind you of someone in your life. The truth is that many older adults unknowingly adopt habits that lead to feelings of isolation, even though their intentions are often the opposite. Why is this discussion important? Because subtle behaviors, the ones we barely notice in ourselves, can have an outsized impact on how others perceive us and how we perceive ourselves. These habits aren't just about how you interact with others. They can directly affect your happiness, self-esteem, and emotional well-being. In this guide, we'll dive into 6 specific behaviors that people like Martha, and perhaps even you, might be engaging in without realizing their effect. From seemingly small things like personal grooming to deeper, more ingrained issues like insisting on respect simply because of age, we'll unpack these habits one by one. But this isn't just about identifying the problems, it's about finding solutions. We'll show you how small, intentional shifts in your perspective and actions can help rebuild and strengthen your connections with the people who matter most in your life. Imagine being able to reconnect with your grandchildren, like Martha's grandson Tyler, who adores her but often feels overwhelmed by her constant advice. Or her neighbor Carl, who admires her kindness but struggles to keep up with her lengthy monologues about the good old days. By understanding these behaviors and taking steps to adjust them, you can transform not just your relationships, but also your overall quality of life. So why should you keep reading or watching? By the end of this journey, you'll have the tools to recognize and address these 6 behaviors that might be holding you back. You'll see how they can subtly erode relationships and, more importantly, how you can turn them into opportunities for growth, connection, and joy. Whether it's mending strained bonds with your children, feeling closer to your peers, or simply rediscovering a sense of purpose and contentment, this guide will be your step-by-step companion. And if you're new, make sure to join our growing community by subscribing to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you'll never miss one of our discussions aimed at helping people like Martha and you live a fuller, more connected life. Now let's dive in and uncover these 6 behaviors, starting with one that might surprise you. Lack of personal hygiene. Let's start with a topic that can be uncomfortable to address but is incredibly important. Personal hygiene. For many older adults like Thomas, a retired carpenter from Denver, maintaining daily hygiene routines can become increasingly challenging over time. Thomas, who is now 75, used to take pride in his well-groomed appearance, always neatly dressed, and ready to greet the world with a firm handshake. However, over the years, he's found himself struggling with chronic back pain, fatigue, and a growing sense of isolation. These challenges, coupled with the belief that no one notices anymore, have led him to slip into habits he never thought he would. Neglecting personal hygiene is more common than you might think among seniors, and it often stems from a variety of physical, emotional, and even psychological factors. Conditions like arthritis can make tasks such as bathing, brushing teeth, or even changing clothes feel like monumental efforts. Depression and loneliness. Feelings that Thomas quietly battles since his wife passed away can further diminish the motivation to maintain self-care routines. For some, there's an underlying belief that as they age, appearances no longer matter as much. After all, who's paying attention? But here's the thing. Personal hygiene is about far more than appearance. It directly affects how others perceive us, impacts our self-esteem, and even has serious implications for our physical health. For instance, infrequent bathing or wearing the same clothes repeatedly can lead to unpleasant odors or visible signs of neglect, which might make loved ones like Thomas's daughter Lisa hesitant to visit as often as they once did. Additionally, inadequate dental care, such as skipping regular brushing or dentist appointments, can result in painful infections or other health complications. The consequences go deeper than social discomfort. Neglected hygiene increases the risk of infections, skin conditions, and illnesses that can worsen the overall quality of life. Thomas, for example, recently developed a skin irritation that his doctor attributed to poor hygiene, something he never imagined would happen to him. The experience left him embarrassed and even more withdrawn. So what's the solution? The good news is that small, manageable changes can make a big difference. For Thomas, it started with setting a simple daily routine, something his grandson Ryan helped him write down and pin to the bathroom mirror. Investing in easy-to-use tools like a long-handled brush for showering or no-rinse cleansing wipes can also make tasks feel less daunting. Thomas even began scheduling weekly self-grooming days with Lisa, turning what used to feel like a chore into a chance for connection with his family. The key takeaway: neglecting personal hygiene is not just about cleanliness, it's about maintaining dignity, health, and relationships. By addressing the underlying causes and taking proactive steps, older adults like Thomas can reclaim their sense of pride and well-being, strengthening bonds with the people who matter most. Complaining about everything. Let's talk about something that might hit close to home for many: complaining. Take the example of Barbara, a 74-year-old retired teacher from Chicago. Barbara has always been vocal about her opinions, whether it's about politics, the changing seasons, or the mysteries of modern technology. But over time, her occasional gripes turned into a steady stream of negativity. Every family gathering began to include her pointed comments about the government, complaints about how nobody writes letters anymore, or a lengthy rant about the latest gadgets that her grandchildren love but she finds utterly baffling. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment one below to let me know that you are still here with me. At first, her family chuckled at her remarks. "That's just Grandma being Grandma," her grandson Mike would say. But as the weeks and months passed, Barbara's constant complaints began to wear thin. Her daughter-in-law Sophia found herself quietly retreating to another room during visits, and her son David started to shorten phone calls to avoid listening to yet another monologue about the good old days. The once vibrant family dinners began to feel heavy, filled with tension rather than laughter. So why do some older adults like Barbara fall into the habit of constant complaining? For many, it stems from a deeper sense of frustration, loneliness, or even a loss of control over the world around them. As society evolves and changes, it's easy to feel left behind or overwhelmed. For Barbara, part of her frustration came from feeling that her voice no longer carried the weight it once did, and complaining became her way of asserting herself. However, the impact of constant negativity goes beyond strained family dynamics. Studies show that habitual complaining can also affect the individual's emotional health, reinforcing feelings of dissatisfaction and even leading to increased stress. For Barbara, her frequent focus on the things that irritated her only deepened her sense of unhappiness. But here's the thing: breaking the habit of constant complaining isn't just about improving relationships, it's also about reclaiming joy and positivity in life. Barbara's turning point came when her grandson Mike, in his usual candid manner, said, "Grandma, I love you, but it's hard to hang out when you're always upset about something." At first she was hurt, but after some reflection she realized Mike had a point. Barbara decided to try a new approach: gratitude journaling. Every evening, she wrote down 3 things she was thankful for, from the beautiful sunset she saw out her window to the fact that Mike still took the time to visit her. Gradually, she also started to shift her conversations, focusing on asking her family questions about their lives instead of diving straight into complaints. It's not about suppressing opinions or pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding balance. By acknowledging frustrations but choosing to highlight positives, older adults like Barbara can create a more uplifting atmosphere for themselves and their loved ones. And who knows, that shift might just inspire others to follow suit. Dominating the conversation, picture this. William, a 78-year-old retired professor from Boston, loves to share his stories. His life has been filled with fascinating experiences, teaching at prestigious universities, traveling to historical landmarks, and meeting some of the brightest minds in his field. Family gatherings are often an opportunity for him to relive those memories, recounting them in vivid detail, while his children and grandchildren admire his achievements. William's tendency to dominate conversations has become a growing point of frustration. Take a recent Sunday lunch at his daughter Rebecca's house. As soon as Rebecca's teenage son Lucas started talking about a school project he was excited about, William jumped in with, "That reminds me of the time I gave a lecture at Yale." The table fell silent as William launched into a 15-minute story. By the time he was done, Lucas had given up on sharing, and the energy around the table had noticeably dimmed. William isn't alone in this behavior. Many older adults feel an urge to lead conversations, eager to share their wealth of knowledge and life experiences. While their intentions are often good, they want to teach, connect, or contribute, the result can sometimes feel one-sided. Interrupting others, steering the topic back to their own stories, or imposing strong opinions can leave younger family members and friends feeling unheard or undervalued. But why does this happen? For some, like William, it's a way of staying relevant or asserting their place in a rapidly changing world. Others may not even realize they're doing it, genuinely believing they're enriching the conversation, yet the impact can be damaging. Younger family members may begin to disengage, seeing conversations as less of a dialogue and more of a lecture. The key to addressing this isn't to stifle storytelling, it's to foster mutual exchange. William's turning point came when Rebecca gently approached him after lunch. "Dad, we love your stories," she said, "but sometimes Lucas and the others feel like they don't get a chance to share their thoughts." At first, William was defensive. "I'm just trying to connect," he said. But after reflecting, he realized she had a point. William decided to try something new. Active listening. At the next family dinner, when Lucas started talking about his school project, William resisted the urge to jump in with his own story. Instead, he asked questions like, "What's the most exciting part of the project for you?" and "What do you hope to learn from it?" The difference was immediate. Lucas lit up and the conversation flowed naturally, with William sharing a related story later, after Lucas had finished. Effective communication is a two-way street. It's about balancing the wisdom of age with the curiosity to learn from others. For William, the shift wasn't easy, but it was worth it. He found that by listening more, he felt more connected to his family, and his stories were better received when shared at the right moments. By encouraging mutual exchange, older adults like William can strengthen intergenerational relationships, ensuring their voice is heard without silencing others. Demanding respect based on age. Meet Dorothy, a 76-year-old retired accountant from Atlanta. Dorothy grew up in a time when age was synonymous with authority, and younger generations were expected to defer to their elders without question. For years, her belief in this cultural norm served her well, earning her the admiration and respect of her children and colleagues. However, as times changed and her grandchildren, like 16-year-old Emma, grew up in a different world, one where respect is often earned through mutual understanding and kindness, Dorothy found herself increasingly frustrated. At a recent family barbecue, Dorothy was upset when Emma didn't immediately agree with her opinion on how the younger generation should approach career choices. "Back in my day," Dorothy said, "young people respected their elders without questioning them. You need to learn to listen." Emma, feeling dismissed, rolled her eyes and walked away, leaving Dorothy hurt and confused. Dorothy's situation is not uncommon. Many older adults assume that respect is an automatic right that comes with age, and while it's true that society should value the wisdom and experiences of older generations, demanding respect without reciprocating it can lead to tension, especially with younger individuals. Emma's reaction wasn't a rejection of Dorothy as a person, It was a response to the one-sided expectation of respect. So why does this disconnect happen? For older adults like Dorothy, the belief that respect your elders is an unshakable rule is deeply ingrained, often tied to their upbringing and life experiences. However, for younger generations, respect is increasingly seen as a two-way street, built on mutual understanding, empathy, and actions, rather than age alone. The impact of demanding respect without earning it can be far-reaching. It can create a divide between generations, leaving younger individuals feeling unheard or undervalued. For Dorothy, her insistence on unquestioned respect created misunderstandings and diminished the quality of her relationships with Emma, and even her son Nathan, who felt caught in the middle. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment too below to let me know that you are still here with me. The good news is that this dynamic can change with small but intentional shifts in perspective. Dorothy's turning point came when Nathan sat down with her after the barbecue. "Mom," he said, "Emma loves you, but she feels like you don't respect her opinions. If you listen to her more, I think she'd be more willing to listen to you." Dorothy decided to give it a try. At their next family dinner, when Emma brought up her plans to pursue a career in digital marketing, something Dorothy had previously dismissed as impractical, Dorothy resisted the urge to critique. Instead, she asked questions like, "What excites you about that field? And how do you see yourself growing in that career?" Emma's reaction surprised Dorothy. She opened up about her aspirations, and the conversation felt more meaningful than any they'd had in months. The lesson? Respect is not about demanding it. It's about earning it through actions, empathy, and genuine interest in others' lives. Dorothy found that by showing respect to Emma, she received it in return, creating a stronger and more fulfilling bond. By fostering mutual respect, older adults like Dorothy can build deeper, more meaningful relationships with younger generations, ensuring that their wisdom is valued and their connections remain strong. Minimizing others' experiences. For Richard, a 72-year-old retired engineer from Dallas, life has been a series of challenges overcome and lessons learned. He's weathered economic downturns, raised 3 children, and even survived a serious health scare in his 60s. So when his granddaughter Olivia, a 20-year-old college sophomore, recently vented about the stress of juggling her studies, part-time, job and social life, Richard's immediate response was, "That's nothing. When I was your age, I worked full-time, went to school at night, and still had to take care of my younger siblings. You've got it easy." What Richard didn't realize was how his words made Olivia feel. Instead of feeling supported, she felt dismissed and undervalued, as though her struggles weren't legitimate. While Richard's intent wasn't to belittle her, his reaction downplayed her experiences, leaving her reluctant to share her feelings with him in the future. This scenario is common among older adults who, like Richard, have faced a lifetime of challenges. From their perspective, the problems faced by younger generations can sometimes seem trivial in comparison. However, every stage of life comes with its unique hurdles, and what might appear insignificant to one person can feel monumental to another. Olivia's stress about balancing her responsibilities is as real to her as Richard's struggles were to him decades ago. So why does minimizing others' experiences happen? For many, it's not about dismissing someone's feelings intentionally. It's about perspective. Older adults often draw from their own experiences to offer context or reassurance, but this approach can unintentionally invalidate the emotions of others. The impact can be significant. When younger individuals feel unheard or unvalued, it can create distance in relationships and hinder emotional connection. Richard's turning point came when Olivia stopped calling him as often, and he noticed she no longer opened up about her life. Concerned, he reached out to his daughter Rachel, who gently explained, "Dad, Olivia feels like you don't take her seriously. She looks up to you, but when you compare her struggles to yours, it makes her feel small." Determined to repair their bond, Richard made an effort to change his approach. The next time Olivia mentioned feeling overwhelmed, Richard resisted the urge to compare her situation to his past. Instead, he said, "That sounds like a lot to handle. How are you managing it all?" Olivia's response was immediate. She opened up about her challenges, and their conversation felt more meaningful than it had in months. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Validating others' experiences fosters understanding and emotional connection. By acknowledging and respecting the feelings of younger generations, older adults can create an environment of trust and support. Richard realized that his role wasn't to compare struggles but to listen, empathize, and offer encouragement. In the end, everyone wants to feel heard and understood. For older adults like Richard, learning to validate others' experiences strengthens relationships and bridges the generational gap, creating deeper connections with the people who matter most. Criticizing young people. Susan, a 73-year-old retired, small business owner from Seattle, watching her grandson Jason glued to his smartphone during family dinners, was a source of constant irritation. "All they do is stare at screens," Susan would mutter to her husband Greg after each visit. One evening, she couldn't hold back any longer. "Jason," she said sharply, "when I was your age, we didn't waste time on gadgets. We talked to each other and worked hard. You're all too distracted by your devices to appreciate what matters." Jason, feeling singled out and judged, responded with a defensive shrug. "Grandma, it's not like that. I was texting about a project for school." The atmosphere at the table turned tense, and Jason spent the rest of the meal silently scrolling through his phone, not because he was uninterested in his family, but because he no longer felt comfortable engaging. Susan's criticism, though rooted in her desire to see Jason live a meaningful and balanced life, had the opposite effect. Like many older adults, Susan viewed her comments as constructive advice, a way to guide younger generations toward what she believed were better choices. However, to Jason, it felt like rejection, a lack of support and acceptance for the way he and his peers live their lives. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Criticizing younger individuals, whether it's about their use of technology, career choices, or values, can create a generational divide filled with tension and resentment. Older adults like Susan often want to share their wisdom and caution younger generations against potential pitfalls, but frequent or excessive criticism can be perceived as a lack of understanding or an unwillingness to embrace change. So why does this happen? For many, it stems from a place of love and concern. Susan, for example, remembered her struggles growing up in a time of limited resources and opportunities. Her comments were her way of trying to instill those same values in Jason. However, she didn't realize that her approach came across as dismissive rather than helpful. The turning point came when Susan's daughter Angela gently pointed out the impact of her words. "Mom, I know you mean well, but Jason feels like you're always criticizing him. He thinks you don't see the good in what he's doing. Maybe instead of focusing on what you don't like, you could ask him about why he uses his phone so much or what he's working on." At their next family dinner, Susan took Angela's advice. When Jason pulled out his phone, Susan resisted the urge to comment. Instead, she asked, "What's the coolest thing you've learned recently from your phone or online?" Jason's face lit up as he shared a fascinating story about a new app he was using to learn coding. The conversation that followed was lively, and, for the first time in a while, Susan felt like she'd truly connected with her grandson. The lesson here is simple. Building strong relationships with younger generations requires patience, understanding, and a willingness to meet them where they are. Offering advice only when sought and framing it with empathy can make all the difference. Susan learned that by shifting her approach from criticism to curiosity, she could bridge the generational divide and foster a relationship built on mutual respect and appreciation. By embracing this mindset, older adults like Susan can create a positive, supportive environment that strengthens family bonds and allows their wisdom to be shared in a way that's meaningful and uplifting for everyone. As we wrap up this journey, let's take a moment to reflect. What have you learned from these 6 behaviors and the stories we've shared? Perhaps you've recognized a habit in yourself or someone you know. Maybe you found a new perspective on how to strengthen relationships with loved ones, or how small changes can lead to greater emotional connection and happiness. Now we'd love to hear from you. What is one thing you've learned today that resonated with you? Is there a habit you'll work on changing, or a new approach you'll try in your interactions with family and friends? Share your thoughts and plans in the comments below. Your insights might inspire others to make positive changes too. And before you go, if you found value in this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. By subscribing, you'll never miss another video designed to help you navigate life's challenges and build deeper, more fulfilling relationships. Thank you for being part of this journey, and we'll see you in the next video.